Hey guys, how's it going? April 13th here, 3:36 p.m. here on the East Coast. So, I wanted to do today's vlog about leadership, um, and a couple of particular reasons. I thought about this yesterday on the drive up to school, and then I also signed up for a leadership course in college as a part of one of my electives to take. Um, and I want to see what different, because I know the military perspective on leadership and what that teaches, and that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And then I also know I don't know the educational approach to leadership as far as taught at a university level. So I'm interested to learn that I'm going to be taking here in the summer now. So kind of looking forward to that. But I did want to explain to you guys how I developed my leadership role in the military. I had both good and bad leaders as I was raising through the ranks in the military. And how I individualize my style, I kind of learned early on, and I learned this from a couple of the good mentors and leaders that I had in the military. They say you pull from the good and you pull from the bad. So you learn what you don't like, therefore you don't adopt the bad styles of leadership that you come across, and then what you end up liking, you can adopt those good styles into your leadership. So that's how I created my leadership style within the organization of the Army, and when I became and had to put into leadership roles, and when I became a sergeant and above. So I remember developing my styles, like I said, coming across bad leaders, and I'd be like, man, these people are terrible. Like, why would they do this? And then I started to, think of my own reasons, and I don't want to get into those specifics, but I used to think that maybe they didn't want, because they would keep us to, let's say, a particular time in the day, even if we were doing nothing, like standing around and doing nothing. We could be sitting there looking at walls because we've already cleaned, we've already done everything that we had to do for that particular day. And they wouldn't have anything else for us to do. And they would just literally have us sit there till about 5 o'clock until the horn went off. And then they would release us. But I was like, man, that's fine. I get the rigmarole of having that 5 o'clock bell go off and then being released. I get that. But what I didn't get was their style of leadership. Like, why not? Why didn't you have anything planned for them to do? Because in the military, they take planning to an entirely different level, where they plan out weeks, months, and sometimes several months in advance, where you have an immediate target of with things to accomplish within the week, a 30-day target, a 60-day target, and a 90-day mark. All these different types of things that you can incorporate into your daily schedule. And I've also had leadership. I had leadership that would keep us there till 5 o'clock regardless, whether you accomplish your mission or not. And then sometimes it would go much later. Like, obviously, if we had some tasks to complete for that day, which I'm okay with, if we're visibly working and we have things to do and those tasks weren't completed by 5 o'clock, then I would, we would stay late to complete the task, and vice versa. But I noticed it in a particular leadership style. If we had to stay late, that was okay. If we got an opportunity to go home early, sometimes it wasn't okay, and I wasn't okay with that type of leadership. So when it came to developing my own type of leadership, and this is just to give you one example, when it came to developing my own type of leadership, I would incorporate the good and the bad. Like, okay, I know that I need to fill up a workday schedule with things for my soldiers to do. Try to keep them busy till 5 o'clock. I try to do things that they can accomplish the overall mission till 5 o'clock. But if my soldiers got done early, they worked harder, and we accomplished the task for that day, I wouldn't make them sit around. That's not building morale. That's not boosting anything. So I would release them on a contingency basis. It really depended on what time, but you were basically on recall status. So I would release them on a contingency basis. So let's say we got done at 3 o'clock. Okay, you guys are good to take off from work. You guys can go home, but you have to pay attention to your cell phone. So if I put out a mass text and I need everybody recalled here for some particular thing, let's say our sergeant major wants to see everybody face to face right now, then I get a hold of them and they have to be, within or around the premises within a half an hour, give or take. So, um, and that worked very effectively for me, and my soldiers appreciated it because I didn't waste their time and I didn't waste mine. Sometimes as a supervisor or in a leadership position, you do have to bite the bullet sometimes and stay back. Um, and this just goes, I think it goes along with the responsibility and the increase in pay that you take on. That sometimes you do have to stay a little bit later than the people that you're in charge of, and that to me I was okay with. I was already used to it. They used to make me do it as a private, so I didn't mind staying late. I didn't mind coming in early, but I treated my soldiers the way I would have wanted to be treated as a private. So, and it used to make me think about some weird things. Like I used to have this saying when I was a private, like if I had I had a leader above me who was a habitual, let's say, person who liked to stay habitually late. Like 3 out of 5 days, this guy would just stay late. Find different reasons to keep you late. Let's say you ran out of things to do for that day, he'd keep you till 5 o'clock, and then you'd find something at 5 o'clock for you to do, saying that we didn't get it done. That I'm talking about, like, not really good leadership. And I used to tell my friends, my buddies who were in the military with me, I said, man, his life at home must not be that good. That was just my thought process on it. And I don't know if that was necessarily true, but I noticed that some people who are a little bit more unhappy in their marriage, or who had a chip on their shoulder, who just didn't like to go home, they would stay at work all the time. Work would actually be their getaway, and with a place of enjoyment for them. It wouldn't be considered work, regardless of how bad it was. So for me, I found that interesting, and I used to tell my friends, man, their home life must it must suck for you to just want to be here staring at walls doing nothing, or keeping your soldiers here. I mean, it just really, to me, it spoke volumes of what could possibly be going on at work, and I could have been completely wrong, but I noticed that there's an increase sometimes in people who are unhappy at home to want to stay at work later, or want to work more jobs, or just want to get out of that house, so they're not constantly there reminded of their unhappiness and misfortune, if that's the case. But I did find that interesting. So again, tying it back to leadership, you got to create your own. You got to pull from the good people that you come across in your life and see how they manage. In the military, it was more cut and dry leadership, where it's identified, it's recognized, and you know that you have a boss above you. Sometimes here in the civilian world, we call them managers, and then there's a certain amount of respect that comes with a rank on your chest in the military that's not found within the civilian world. Here you can have a different relationship with your managers. You can hang out with them and there be no fraternization policy. Whereas in the military, like, I couldn't hang out with soldiers that were, let's say if I was E6, a staff sergeant, I could hang out with other sergeants, but I couldn't hang out with any E4s or below, specialists or below. And it's just due to fraternization policies. And you get that. You don't want to mingle, and just like officers can't hang out with enlisted. And you have those things, unless a relationship existed prior to the commitment in the Army, then that a relationship in that matter is fine. But a majority of the time, officers don't hang out with enlisted. And I mean, even though they tend to hang out depending on the enlisted and officer's age, but sometimes, it's frowned upon because of fraternization policies that are put in place to mitigate those types of things and to keep people, keep parties separated, for lack of better terms. Whereas in the civilian world, you guys don't have those, now I say you guys, but I'm included in that, you guys as well. We don't have that barrier there, and constantly you'll have managers inviting you over your house for dinner, or to hang out outside of work, or you catch them at the bar and have a couple of drinks with them. That's all okay. And it's very acceptable on this side of the coin. But in the military, that wasn't. And you got to think why they had those rules and policies in place in the first place. What were the reasons for that? And maybe you can justify those reasons in the civilian workplace. But I do like not having those policies in place, not having to worry about who I'm hanging out with, whether they're my manager or my subordinate. Then it just makes life a little bit easier. Makes your, I believe it makes your environment more sustainable. I noticed that when you're in like when I was in Korea and we would go out to the field for let's say 6 weeks at a time, we were all together regardless. So we spent every minute of every day together. You're talking about there's no really escaping each other at that point. So you will hang out with officers. You will hang out with your subordinates because you're not going to differentiate that time when you're in the field, and they consider it an exercise. Even if you're in your downtime, you're not going to be like, okay, private, I can't hang out with you. No, you hang out with them, and just as you would here in the civilian world. But different circumstances call for different measures in the military, and those things don't exist necessarily on this civilian side of the coin. But I did find that interesting, and tie this all back to leadership. I'd just like to say that the people you encounter in life, the good managers and bad managers you have, you know both types. And you know the types that made you feel good, made you feel like you want to be that type of manager. But what I notice more in the civilian side that I find interesting is a lot less people want to be managers. Just a lot less. I don't know what it is. In the military, everybody's striving to become a sergeant on the enlisted side. Like that is the goal of a majority of people in the enlisted side. Like how quick can I get to sergeant? And then once you make it, you have to establish your leadership role and your leadership style so you can effectively lead soldiers. But I notice a big disconnect when it comes to the civilian side and having people striving for management. It just doesn't seem to exist as much. Like people get way more complacent on the civilian side, and they're okay with not managing people. What I find interesting is sometimes people would let other managers just come and go within an organization rather than just step up and handle that organization. You wouldn't believe the amount of people that the managers that get turned over, right? But you have very capable people within the organization that aren't managers that just don't want to step up, and that to me just blows my mind sometimes. And I get people who just say they're not built for management, but if you're put if your back's against a wall and you have these people who you're constantly mad about coming in and messing things up, how you run a particular organization or how you run a particular function, why not just step up to the plate and make the changes yourself? You can be that change. And these are things that I mentor a lot of people on, is that some people are afraid to take on a leadership role, and there's really nothing but good that comes of it because you control, not unilaterally, but laterally and with other people, the other people around you. And if you have the effective style and people tell you, this is another indicator. If people are telling you that you'd be suited for management, maybe you should take this person's job who's a echelon above you, then why not? If people think you can do it, that's a very good indicator that you're well suited for it. And they've already have the respect and integrity in you for you to take that step. Now you just have to, have the respect and integrity for yourself to take that step. So I did find that interesting, but you have to be willing to take on that leadership role. And I noticed in the military, everybody was eager for it, and they would complain if they weren't being promoted. Whereas in the civilian world, people are just okay with not being promoted or receiving promotions. They just come a lot less frequently, and it seems like there's a lot less accolades that go with it. But you need to be proud of that position and the changes you can make within your specific organization, and see how that rolls for you. So that'll be it for today's vlog. I hope you guys got a lot of useful information out of there when it comes in terms to leadership and management and creating your own style. Like I said, and you heard it before in this vlog, pull from the good and pull from the bad. Develop your own leadership style that you would want to be led as. And that's best reflected within what made you happy and what made you unhappy when you encounter specific managers. And there's several types of management styles. You have aggressive, you have non-aggressive, you have passive. There's several different types of styles, but you got to find the one that caters to you that best coincides with your truest self. Don't try to put on a persona where you think this guy's cool and you'd like to be cool like him. Figure out what works best for you and what you think would make people happy? What made you happy? And that's how I kind of developed my style, and people liked it. I got a lot of good feedback. The only people I got negative feedback from were the hardcore people up top that were just, they're not with change so much. They're very set into their ways. They're not open to um, uh, different styles of leadership. They were used to one tough style of leadership, and they called it tough love, so to speak. But did they like that? Some people do like that, and that's why they incorporate that leadership style. And if you do, then so be it. We still do need those types of people, and in those types of leadership styles to make sure that things get done effectively and precisely. But if you're a little bit soft-spoken or a little bit more passive, it doesn't mean you can't be a manager. It just means you're a passive manager, which people greatly appreciate those types of guys, because that's the style that I've chosen to adopt, and it has worked excellent for me. You're hard when you have to be, and you're nice when you need to be. So that's kind of what works for me. So think about your leadership style if you're in a position of leadership, and see what kind of style that you've adopted. And if you're not in a position of leadership, think about possibly going to a position of leadership. And the worst you can do is try it out. And if it truly isn't for you, then it isn't for you. But believe it or not, the military, at least the Army, did have these levels to where you had to reach by certain time frames. So you can't retire as a specialist in the Army, as an E4 or a corporal. You can't retire at, I don't think, even as an E5 anymore, as a sergeant. Your first ability to be able to retire is a staff sergeant, the rank that I made before I got out. So what that tells me is you either move up or you move out. And I've kept that same ideology into the civilian world, and you guys should adopt the same mentality. You either move up or you move out. If you're stagnant where you're currently at, unless you have a particular trade type of job where you're just suited for your trade and you're excellent at it, you're the subject matter expert in that field, and let's say that is the highest echelon that you can possibly go, then you're there. Then there's no need to gravitate for management. You're just a specialist in your particular field, and that's okay. But if you want to be higher than that, you either move up or move out. You can try different things, but always be on the up and up and face new challenges head on. Don't be stuck in the midst of what could possibly go wrong, or the challenges of being a leader. You don't know if you've never walked a day in their shoes, and the decisions that they have to make, or the good things that go along with management. Excuse me. So you never know until you give it a try, and that's the gist of this. If you're not in a leadership position, be open to being in a leadership position, and you don't know what good things can come of it. And that's pretty much all I can say about that. So I appreciate you guys watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. I'm still at 60 subscribers, still trying to get to 75 by the end of the month. I'm taking a trip at the end of the month, but I do plan on still recording my vlogs. Maybe not post them, depending on the internet connection, but I will at least record my vlogs on a daily basis and post them as I can. But I appreciate you guys. Continue to watch my channel, leaving me good feedback. I was left some great comments yesterday about, from my mom as to thoughts on the women's ideologies and why they buy clothing so often and being seen in the public and things of that nature. So some good insight. Sometimes I obviously don't know it all. I can't know it all. So when you have other people chime in, it just helps to other people see the different perspectives that are out there as well. And it's a good learning curve for everybody. So I appreciate you guys watching, and I will see you on the next one.